I feel like even the best of relationships have some rough patches and some few breakups maybe or something like that. And that relationship is no different with the king and I. Hey, what's up, bookworms and constant readers? We are back again today to talk a little multiverse, and this one is more of a frequently asked question I get about the readings of Stephen King. As you guys may or may not know, a huge fan, obviously my favorite author of all time, but I haven't read everything. And so people ask me a few things like, why haven't you read everything? And what are those books that you haven't read? Well, I said there is a little bit of story behind this, and I've elaborated it much more on the channel and other places, but I'll kind of give you the Cliff Notes version here. Well, there was a little bit of a rough patch in the reading history for Stephen King, and I'm going to kind of talk about that. I'm going to talk about 10 of his books that I have not read, and I'm going to talk about why I haven't read them, as well as maybe some future plans to do so. So I'm going to begin all the way at the first one I haven't read, which is going to be Black House, which was co-authored by Peter Straub. Now with this one, I told the story with the Talisman, as I read everything that was in my high school library at the time, except Dark Tower and Talisman. That was the only things that they did not have. I didn't read Talisman until a couple years back on this channel, because I started doing a great Stephen King reread. Right before I began this channel, I decided I'm going to start at the beginning and reread everything or read everything that I haven't read, and I'm going to do it in publication order. I got to about Tommyknockers by about the time I was starting this channel, so it was one of those things where I said I was always going to go to it, but then I started this channel and I found new things. I listened to all your recommendations, and that reading plan did slow down a little bit. But Black House is one I'm actually going to be reading very, very soon. I'm finishing up Boys in the Valley, and then I'll be picking up Black House, because that is part of my reread, I guess you would say, or my first time read. So I'll be doing Black House, and then from a Buick 8, which I have done before, and then Dark Tower, and continue my Into the Multiverse series. But that's when I'm actually correcting that right now. So the reason I didn't read it is because I never read the Talisman, so I wasn't going to read the sequel. Obviously, it's well known. It's very well known that I thought that the Talisman was just all right. It was just all right. So we'll be seeing how it goes with Black House. Now, I did read Dark Tower 7 in 2004, but I have to tell you this because this is where the history of the breakup happened. Yes, guys, I was a waiter for the Dark Tower. I was waiting years between these books. I was very, very excited for them. And then Song of Susanna came out, and it just completely killed my motivation. I went into book 7 with my arms crossed. I was very upset. And even though I've talked about this recently, that I feel like a lot of the criticism I get is that I didn't like the ending of Dark Tower, and it's not it. There is a much bigger story to that. Find that video if you want to know more. But it did demotivate me to the point where I was like, maybe Stephen King's just, I'm out of that part of my life. And I didn't read them for 7 years. For 7 years, I didn't read any new Stephen King books, and it took my obsession with something else to get me to finally come back to reading his books. But that's really where this all begins, because I didn't read The Colorado Kid, which came out, and I don't have a real reason why. I just, at this time, I was just like, nope, I think I'm done. I think I'm just, Stephen King was a phase of my life, and I'm moving on. All because, yes, I was a bit butthurt by how Dark Tower went. After those years of waiting and getting just a very, very unsatisfactory last third of that series, I felt like that was very, very frustrating to me. So I didn't read Cell as well. Still haven't. And I'll be honest with you, some of the things I heard about Cell, maybe that was another reason why I wasn't anxious to go pick it up. Now, I didn't read Lisi's story. I'm going through release date here. I didn't read Lisi's story during that stretch, but I did go back and read it in 2022 because the Apple TV adaptation was coming out, and I do like to read all Stephen King books before an adaptation comes out, because, what gets butchered worse than a Stephen King movie? Well, maybe a Michael Crichton movie. But, those two are 1A and 1B in that regard. So I did actually go back and release his story. I actually like the TV series better, which was also written by Cy King. Have not read Blaze as of yet. I know that was actually a Richard Bachman one. I think that was actually one that he had claimed was found during his Richard Bachman. Now, I don't know if that means that it was one that was just kind of laying around, he just had, or if it is actually one that he just was kind of just playing up the Richard Bachman thing. Again, I didn't do very much research on it because I didn't plan to read it. ℚ𝕦𝕤𝕤𝕤 I read in 2011, so I read it later, and I'll get to why 2011 is a very pivotal year in this timeline. But since I read ℚ𝕦𝕤𝕤 and loved it, ℚ𝕦𝕤𝕤 I think is one of his most underrated stories, without a doubt, and I think it's the most ripe for an adaptation, like one of those Netflix adaptations. they could do *ŌĆØ𝕤𝕤𝕤 really, really well, I think. It would have to be a huge budget. Wouldn't have to really do very much to really get that to come to fruition, I think. I don't know if they got the rights to it or not. But I'm actually stunned that *ŌĆØ𝕤𝕤𝕤 hasn't actually gotten an adaptation yet. In fact, I've seen several things that feel almost like they read *ŌĆØ𝕤𝕤𝕤 and liked it and said, let me make my own thing. But no *ŌĆØ𝕤𝕤𝕤 as of yet. Now, just after Sunset, that was a short story collection. But again, I was aware when all these came out. And I was like, no, because guys, I did still frequent the bookstore. I was still reading. But I was like, nah. No more Stephen King for me. Under the Dome is another one that I read in 2011. Now, that was actually right after some things. And I also knew that that it might have been later than 2011, if I'm being honest. I know right before the CBS adaptation came out was when I read it. That might have been like 2015, 2016, maybe. I don't know. It was a while back, but I was willing to give it a try after this big seminal moment in 2011. Now, Blockade Billy, honestly, that's one I didn't really remember until I did get back on the train. I was like, okay, I gotta get these all on hardcover. Blockade Billy was one I hadn't even really heard about very much. Full Dark, No Stars, I did read in 2017 because Netflix was doing the adaptation of 1922. Again, I wanted to read it, and you read one of those short stories, those novellas, you're in the mood, and you say, I'll just read all 4 of them, and I did, and I liked that one quite a bit. Now, 11/22/63 came out in 2011, and guys, this was the end of the breakup. This was the reconciliation with that person that you used to be in a relationship for a long time. You opened up that line of communication, and you said, maybe I'll give them another shot. Now, why 11/2/22/63? Was it just because of all the critical acclaim for it? No, absolutely not, because I felt like other books here I had heard about and heard friends that were still reading Stephen King that said they were really great, and I was still like, nah, just cannot do it. With 11/22/63, some things that people might not know about me, I am a humongous JFK assassination conspiracy nut, like big time. Like I'm full on tinfoil hat. I have researched this for years. I saw the Oliver Stone movie when it first came out, and I just went down a rabbit hole, and it's never really come back. The most nonfiction books I've read in my life have been on the JFK assassination. Dozens and dozens. There's things about that I could tell you that people be like, wow, I've never heard that one before. Whatever conspiracy there is, I've heard about it. Whatever conspiracy you think has been debunked, I'm like, has it though? So it's one of those things. I don't want to get into the point of getting my channel like deleted here or anything like that. I don't want to see like the red laser pointer being on my head or anything like that. I'm just saying that this is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very, very passionate about the JFK assassination. I will eat anything up that's about it. I live 4-hour drive from Dallas. I've been to Dealey Plaza. I've been to the book depository. I've walked the route that they claim that Oswald walked after he left the book depository that day. I've been to the theater. I've done all the things that you can think of with this. So when I heard that Stephen King was writing a book that took place around the JFK assassination, I was like, every time I think I'm out, he pulls me back in. So yeah, I was going to read this, of course. I was like, okay, you got my favorite author, or my formerly favorite author, writing about the topic that I'm the most interested in the real world. I mean, this is just something that I just felt like it was just meant to be. And damn it if the book didn't turn out to be amazing. So it's one of my favorite Stephen King books, not just because of the content, because the book is just that damn good. I know people who know jack shit about the JFK assassination that love that book because it is just that good. And it's like, how can he be writing books this long at that age and it be that good? I don't even know how the hell he's doing this. But it made me realize, wow, I really did miss Stephen King. And I will say, going back now and reading some of these, I feel like these were the books that got his mojo back post-accident because there was a decrease in quality. I'm not afraid to admit it, at least in my opinion, after his accident. I felt like with Dark Tower, he just wanted to be done with it. He got spooked about dying. He didn't want to be one of those authors who has the major long fantasy series and he dies before it gets completed. I understood why he did it. I just wish he hadn't. I feel like if he had not done that, he'd probably just be finishing it today, and it would be a very different story. That's how I feel. But yeah, I was very upset. But coming back at 11/22/63, it just rekindled that love, and that's when I went back and I read some of those big ones. That's why I went back and I read *ŌĆØ𝕤𝕤𝕤. That's why I went back and read *Under the Dome*. It's just one of those books that just made me realize, okay, I did miss this author, but I still didn't go back and read those other things. That's why I think *Under the Dome* was actually a little later than that, because that's when I said, I'm going to start this great Stephen King reread, read it from the beginning in publication order, including the Richard Bachman stuff, and I'm just going to kind of roll through it and see how it goes. And if I hadn't started this channel, I probably would have been done by now, but that's where we stand. So I still haven't read Joyland. That's really just another one of those, because the horror crime ones, I was never really like anxious for those. Now that I've read later, I might be a little bit more interested. Plus the fact that I don't think that there's anyone who's told me that Joyland wasn't spectacular. And again, I believe it because, look, I might be sick of King doing a lot of the hard crime detective stuff, but, Later was excellent. And if Joyland is more like Later, well then, I could be into that. And I like 2 of the 3 Bill Hodges books as well. I actually did read those because, again, I read the Bill Hodges trilogy because of the TV show that was coming out for Mr. Mercedes, and that's why I did read that one as well. Out of order is what I'm saying. So I was out of my breakup period at that point, but I was like, I want to go back and read everything in order, so I'm not going to be reading new releases or anything, and that's how somebody ruined The Outsider for me. It was funny on Twitter, someone was like, hey, what do you think about this, and this that happened at the end of The Outsider? I'm like, well, I haven't started yet. I'm like, oh my God, man, it's like, you're such a Stephen King fan. I thought for sure you had read it. But it didn't. I actually still really did enjoy that book. But probably the biggest shocker on here is that I haven't read The Wind Through the Keyhole. Now, at the time this came out, I think it was 2012 or so, I was like, look, I just forgave Stephen. I'm not ready to go back into the Dark Tower and bring up all those bad feelings. It's like when your significant other has an affair and you can probably forgive them, but the first time that ex shows back up in the picture, yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it. I hate to keep putting this in relationship terms. I just don't know how else to do it. And I was like, I'm not ready. So when I started doing this and said I was going to do my Stephen King reread and do the Dark Tower, is that I would do The Wind Through the Keyhole, which, if you don't know, takes place between books 4 and 5 in the series. I would read it that way, but I didn't. I decided, I'll do it at the end. So I don't know. There's something about this book I've just been putting off. But I do intend to get to the rest of the Tower this year on my reread, hoping that Time is a Healer. I just don't know A Song to Susanna, man. And then after I finish Dark Tower 7, then I will read The Wind Through the Keyhole. If It Bleeds, I didn't read because I'm going to be straight up with you guys here. And it's tied to another one. So If It Bleeds and Holly. I haven't read If It Bleeds or Holly. I liked Holly Gibney a lot. I think Holly is a great character. I loved her with Jerome, and I loved her with Bill Hodges in the Bill Hodges trilogy. I thought that tandem was amazing. I loved the way they played off each other. I didn't even mind her that much in The Outsider. I didn't need to see her a 5th and a 6th time, and apparently he's working on a 7th appearance. I don't need this much of this character, and I just kind of got exhausted with it. Where I was like, is this the character to lead the multiverse? I mean, is this the character that's going to have the most appearances in the multiverse? I don't know. It was a me thing. So I haven't read If It Bleeds or Holly, even though I know that If It Bleeds, she's only in one of those 4 short stories. It just turned me off. I had other things going on. I was like, I'm not going to force in a Stephen King book just because of that. And I guess that was a 10. But also the Gwendy books. I haven't read the Gwendy books. Now, I think that he co-writes those with someone else. And I feel like people are telling me, well, if you were counting the one he does with Peter Straub as a Stephen King book, you should count these. The author's name eludes me at the moment. But the thing was, like, what I understand is that Stephen King helped write book 1 and book 3, but not book 2. So I just kind of discounted it. And again, I think that the idea that I didn't hear a ton of great things about it is another reason why. And then I also thought, well, is this like Sleeping Beauties, where I feel like he put his name on it to help out Owen? Is that what he's doing here? So I don't know a ton about Gwendy, so I'm not really counting it on here. But looking at all these, look, Black House, I'm doing that probably starting this week sometime. Colorado Kid, Cell, I'll be doing those when I get to them in the order of publication. Or Blaze, Just After Sunset. I'll probably do Just After Sunset at the end because I'm not doing short story collections while I do Into the Multiverse. So I'll probably go back to that at the end when I start covering some of the short story collections, even though I did one for You Like It Darker, but that was a new release, and it was a conversation with Jaime, so of course I was going to take advantage of that. Blockade Billy, Joyland, those seem like really short reads. I can probably fit those in whenever I want. If I don't want to do those in order, if I'm going to do any of these out of order, it would probably be one of those two, I think. With the Keyhole, again, once I finish the Tower. If It Bleeds and Holly will happen eventually. Once my Holly fatigue has ended, maybe I will get to those. I'm just not really anxious to do them. It's not one of those things where I'm like, oh my God, I would rather chew glass than read those. I'm just not anxious to. And guys, I have so many other things that I want to read that I put off. You know how much things that people send me that I would love to read? And I'm like, no, I've had this for like 2 years. Maybe I should read it. Like I mentioned Boys in the Valley earlier, which I'm getting Stephen King vibes off of already. I feel like with Boys in the Valley, I got that arc, God, maybe 2 years ago. I'm just not getting to it. I remember when I read Mike Shackle's last 4 books, and I told him, hey, check this out. You sent this to me like 3 years ago. He didn't even remember it. It was before we even knew each other. So I always tell people, never say never, because, I'll eventually get to it. So I think that there is a method to my madness, and I like to read these things in a timely manner, but when it happens, it happens. But with the Stephen King stuff, it is going to be somewhat in order. I'm getting back to maybe not once a month, but once every other month order, because I know some of you guys have been waiting for my tier list that I've been doing for Stephen King. I've got the first 3 parts out, and I told you at the end of that 3rd one, it's going to be a while for part 4, but I get comments constantly about, where's part 4? It's been like a year plus. And I said, I need to reread some of these books because I haven't read them since I was a teenager or very early 20s, and I feel like it would be doing them a disservice if I ranked them just going off of my memory, because as I learned with Dreamcatcher, a lot of that can be nostalgia when you do revisit them. So with these, yes, I do intend to read all of these. You know, I don't plan to stop reading Stephen King anytime soon, and I will get to them when I get to them in the publication order. That's when I do plan to do them. So why did I not read these? Obviously, like I said, I was very upset after Dark Tower, and that's a me thing. That's not me telling you that Dark Tower sucks. That was a me thing, because I know a lot of people, they think I'm crazy for not liking a lot of the events in Dark Tower 6 and 7. They think I'm crazy for it. They thought it was great. That's awesome. I want people to enjoy things, especially when it's my favorite author ever. But again, I feel like when you're talking about a decades-long relationship, there's going to be some bumps in the road, and that was a bump in the road for The King and I, and that's why I haven't read these 10. But again, they are in the plan. So are there any Stephen King books that you haven't read that you intend to read, just kind of haven't gotten to it yet? I think it happens to everybody. It's not always easy to read an author like ever release it, but especially when they are as proficient and just they write as quickly as Stephen King has for his whole career. He puts out, I mean, he's still putting out 1-2 books a year. It's nuts at his age. It really is wild. And when you look at his whole bibliography here, I mean, there's a reason I'm like, I don't think I can fit these on one shelf very much longer. I'm starting to stack them sideways on the bottom to make them all fit. But yeah, that's a question I get asked a lot, is why haven't I read these and which ones are they? Well, that is the 10 right there, and they are in the plans, just maybe not tomorrow, but very much sooner on a different path of the beam. Who knows? But we will see, and I can't wait to get to them and talk to you guys about them as I continue into the Multiverse series, which I hope you have checked out. It's where I go through every single Stephen King book in publication order, and I talk about the connections in his greater multiverse that a lot of people don't know is connected. So yeah, it was the MCU before it was cool, my friends. So drop in the comments, guys. Let me know if you've read any of these. You think I'll like them, you think I'll hate them. That's always a possibility. You think I'm completely loony for not liking Song of Susanna. It's okay. It's okay. Criticism is welcome here. I do appreciate any discussion you guys want to have down below. So drop in the comments, guys, and I will talk to you there.